Marble columns rise into the pale light of morning outside the theater of Pompey. The bronze doors gleam faintly, their weight a reminder of the power exercised within. Senators gather in small clusters along the portico, their togas shifting like restless water. Beyond them, the street opens to the approach of Julius Caesar, laurel crown fixed neatly, the purple-bordered toga of a dictator flowing from his shoulders. His step is measured, confident, but his eyes are watchful, catching every glance and every pause. Warnings have reached him for days. The soothsayers caution to beware the Ides of March, Calpurnia's dream of his statue bleeding beneath the hands of Romans. Yet here he is, walking toward the place where the day's business awaits. Sandals scuff on stone as senators peel away from their groups to greet him. Their smiles are practiced, the warmth in them measured. The circle begins to form even before the bronze doors close behind him. Years earlier, Caesar's presence in Rome was no less commanding, but it carried a different weight. Fresh from his campaigns in Gaul, he brought with him gold for the treasury, prisoners for the triumph, and a reputation that reached every household. The people cheered his return. His soldiers followed him with loyalty, born of shared victories, and his name was carved into songs and statues. But the Senate saw more than a victorious general. They saw a man with enough power to ignore their will. When they ordered him to dismiss his army and return as a private citizen, they meant to strip him of command. Instead, standing on the banks of the Rubicon in 49 BCE, he gave the order to cross. It was a single act that declared civil war without a word spoken, and Rome braced for the storm that would follow. The war ended with Pompey dead in Egypt, the Senate bowing to a reality they could no longer deny. Caesar returned a master without rival, granted triumphs that stretched for days, and honors that had no precedent. He was named Dictator Perpetuo, a ruler for life. In swift succession came his reforms: land grants to veterans, debt relief for the poor, and the reorganization of the calendar into the Julian system. Each measure won him devotion from the common people, but sharpened the hostility of the old elite. The patricians saw their influence shrink with each decree, their authority eroded by a man who seemed to care more for the Forum-S crowds than for their ancient traditions. The whispers began, and with them the dangerous word rex, king, a title that history had taught Romans to hate. To Caesar, power was not meant to rest in the hands of a narrow aristocracy. He expanded the Senate from 600 to 900 members, filling it with loyal governors, generals, and provincial leaders. In his vision, it was a way to bring Rome's vast territories into the heart of government. To the entrenched nobility, it was an insult that diluted their legacy, replacing the weight of centuries with the favor of a single man. They retreated into private meetings, where complaints hardened into resolve over cups of wine. The conversation shifted from grumbling about Caesar's ambition to imagining a Rome without him. In these villas, lit by oil lamps and guarded by silence, a plan began to take shape, one that would restore the Republic with a single, decisive act. The core of the plot formed around Gaius Cassius Longinus, a soldier and senator whose loyalty to Pompey's memory never wavered. He recruited others with care, drawing in Decimus Brutus, a man trusted by Caesar himself, and Trebonius, a general who had fought beside him. The most symbolic prize was Marcus Junius Brutus, descended from the man who had driven out Rome's last king centuries before. The conspirators cloaked their intentions in the language of liberty and the restoration of the Republic. But in their hearts, personal grievances festered, missed promotions, slights in the Senate, decisions that had cost them influence. These private wounds blended with public justification until the line between them vanished. The Republic, they told themselves, would be reborn in the moment Caesar died. The city itself seemed to resist the coming day. Omens multiplied. The soothsayer Spurinna renewed his warning. Calpurnia woke from troubled sleep, speaking of visions in which her husband's statue gushed blood while Romans washed their hands in it. Friends urged him to stay away from the Senate. But in the morning, Decimus Brutus came to his house with an easy smile, urging him to attend, assuring him the Senate planned new honors. It was enough to quiet his hesitation. Caesar dressed in the crimson-bordered toga of his rank, fastened his laurel crown, and stepped into his litter. Through the narrow streets, the people watched him pass, some with curiosity, some with the stillness of those who know more than they will say. Inside the Senate chamber, the air was cooler, shadows pooling in the recesses between columns. Caesar took his seat in the curule chair placed before the statue of Pompey. The business of the day began with Tullius Cimber, who stepped forward holding a petition to recall his exiled brother. Caesar shook his head. Cimber moved closer, grasping his shoulders with both hands, too firmly for courtesy. Another senator tugged at his toga, pulling it from his neck. The first blade came from Casca, a sudden, sharp sting in the shoulder. Caesar spun, raising his arm to block a second blow, and cried out in Latin for order. But the chamber was already changing. Senators surged toward him, their togas flaring, the flash of bronze catching the lamplight. The assault became a storm. Some struck with hurried jabs, their eyes darting. Others drove their daggers with practiced force. Caesar tried to push toward the statue, perhaps seeking the symbolic defiance of dying before Pompey's likeness. Then his gaze found Brutus. In that instant, the fight drained from him. Here was the man he had defended in the Senate, the man he had treated like a son. Their eyes met, and the connection between them broke under the weight of betrayal. Caesar's arm fell to his side. The knives kept working, 23 in total, and the dictator of Rome collapsed at the base of Pompey's statue, his blood pooling where another man's memory already lingered in stone. The chamber fell silent. The conspirators stood over the body, their breathing heavy, their hands and togas marked by what they had done. Some imagined they had saved the Republic. Others already feared the reaction outside these walls. They left the Senate quickly, their plan hinging on the belief that the people would welcome Caesar's death. But Rome was not a city eager to embrace their vision. Mark Antony would speak to the crowds, Octavian would move to claim his inheritance, and the Republic, already fragile, would not survive the decade. By nightfall, Caesar's body lay on a wooden bier in his home, his wounds washed but unhidden. Outside, the streets were alive with grief and rage. In the Forum, citizens gathered around torches that lit the marble in flickering gold. Some called for justice, others for vengeance. The theater of Pompey stood silent, the blood on its stones drying in the night air. What was meant as an act to restore the Republic had ended with the Republic's last chance. Rome would have rulers still, but never again a Senate that commanded alone. Caesar's death sealed the fate his killers claimed to fear, and the empire that rose from it would carry his name far beyond the Rubicon he once crossed. If you enjoyed this, I'm going to be posting a lot here. I would greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe. That's a wrap from Empire's History Tales. Glad you stopped by. See you next time.